Heard for so long how bad the church was in the Dark Ages. And did you know that these terms are actually invented by atheists? People like Voltaire, who hated Christianity, he's the one that came up with the idea of the Dark Ages, the idea that the Middle Ages were this dark retrograde time before Hume and Kant and Locke and these Enlightenment goblins, who themselves are kind of Enlightenment, just degenerates, especially David Hume. Well, these people decided to enact and bring about a kind of republic, democratic, secular ideology based around constitutional principles. And I'm not saying constitutions are bad. I understand Magna Carta. I understand all that stuff. But the problem is that this doesn't work on the basis of natural rights theory. Once natural rights theory is tossed out because people begin to realize, well, if there's not a specific God, there's really no basis for the natural law and the natural right. So this leads people towards the direction of more and more progressive liberalism and nihilism. Father Seraphim Rose wrote a famous book called Nihilism, Roots of the Revolution. In that book, he tracks the phases that revolutionary philosophy goes through. It begins as a kind of Enlightenment, universal, utopian kind of idea. We're going to change the world through economics and teaching everybody the Federalist Papers and making everybody in the world constitutional, democratic republic governments. And of course, none of that worked when you try to import that to Afghanistan or sub-Saharan Africa. So what's the problem? Maybe the problem is the Enlightenment ideologies themselves. Doesn't mean everything about the Enlightenment is wrong, but the root assumptions of the Enlightenment might have serious flaws. And unfortunately, that might also mean that there's problems in the American Enlightenment experiment. If America is a confluence of multiple interests, including Enlightenment deists, Episcopalians, Catholics, Protestants, Congregationalists, radical reformers, all of these things go into what we call the ethos of Americanism. Eventually, something's going to win out, right? Enlightenment atheism and deism, or Christian principles. Well, America has not gone in the direction of the Christian principles. In fact, it's been a long, continual descent and slide away from those types of principles into more and more generic freedoms and rights. And now freedoms and rights are supposed to be castrating children. I'm a whatever I want to say I am. That's how far we've come. But nobody ever, except for myself, other people on the internet, Andrew Wilson and others, are beginning to, people don't think about critiquing the idea of rights themselves. What are these rights? Where are they? Are they under a microscope? Are they a scientifically studied thing? If you have the attitude of empiricism and scientism, there's no such thing as rights. They don't exist. They either are made up, they're social conventions, or they are given to you, afforded to you by the state, and thus they can be removed by the state. So the scary thing that the left doesn't want to realize is maybe all of these principles require a transcendental foundation, namely a God. And if that's the case, then all of that worldview collapses. And as we move into the sort of postmodern America, where the Enlightenment narratives are collapsing, the World War II narratives and stories are collapsing. Everything we've been told the 20th century as a whole, its narrative is collapsing because it tried to blend basic principles of the Ten Commandments or natural law or whatever you want to call it with Enlightenment atheism. And oil and water don't mix. Eventually, one of these ideas, one of these worldviews is going to come to fruition and to dominate. And since that Enlightenment idea had already assumed and presupposed that the church should be severed from any relationship with the state and society as a whole, that we're going to have a secular state somehow based on natural law, it's only inevitable that atheism would win out eventually. And after atheism wins out, as Father Seraphim Rose says, you move from the paradigm of utopian Enlightenment principles to nihilism eventually. Nihilism and postmodernism are the end result, and everything is irony, everything is shitposting, everything is trolling, including your whole life, including even the actions of targeted assassinations and school shootings by the last 7 or 8 trans shooters. This is the Alex Jones Show. Don't go anywhere. I'm your guest host, Jay Dyer of Jay's Analysis.
Go to the AlexJonesStore.com and experience these products like ultramethylene blue